You might have a hard time believing this, but one of Florida's most consistent sources of tourism is fading away. And its economic contribution? It's already starting to make its way through businesses in the region. We're talking about Canadians, the Snowbirds, who, for decades, made en masse their way south to escape cold and fuel Florida's winter economy. But this year, it's not merely a slowdown, it's a deep pullback. Fewer Canadians are booking long winter vacations, and more surprisingly, many are selling their Florida residences altogether. More surprising? Florida didn't see it coming. Increasing property taxes and rising insurance rates are certainly part of the equation. But what if the actual motives go far deeper, into politics, personal values, and what seems to be an ongoing, passive protest with some serious fiscal oomph? Today, we're going to look at true stories of people who wintered in Florida for decades even, and are now withdrawing entirely. We're talking about individuals whose seasonal spending used to add tens of thousands of dollars annually to the U.S. economy. Funds that once benefited restaurants, rental houses, vacation spots, and more. Now, poof, it's vanished. And data from places like Redfin bear it out. Canadian buyer demand has dropped more than 25% from a year ago. Florida tried initially to sweep it under the rug, but there are indications all around. Empty rental houses, unsold homes, and an uneasy silence where one-time thriving snowbird colonies used to dance. So, if you ever found yourself pondering just how much economic influence a year's worth of visitors can bring, or whether the values of one country can actually remake another's economy, this video has answers. Before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps share this turning point story with others who must see it. Let's get started. For decades, it was nearly a tradition. Each fall, as Canadian leaves began to change color, thousands of seniors would pack up and flee south to Florida. But they weren't snowbirds, they were temporary residents, snowbirds, who brought vitality, life, and good money with them each winter. They shopped at local stores, bought goods and services, and spent freely, sometimes as much as $25,000 per home, per winter. But those days are over. This year, increasing numbers of Canadians are choosing not to return. Some are canceling plans made years ago. Others are selling their homes for good. And it's not a slight drop in interest. It's a wave, one that could possibly revolutionize Florida's winter economy. One longtime snowbird recently shared that they used to spend over $25,000 each season dining out, shopping locally, and keeping up their property. This year, that entire budget stayed in Canada, and they're far from alone. Across online forums, social media, and community groups, a consistent message is emerging. We're done. This flight has been a pronouncement, a statement of changing values and growing discomfort. Whatever the reason, politics, rising costs, or feeling unwanted, Canadians are re-examining their relationship with Florida. Sunshine and palm trees were good enough, no longer. What many in Florida did not realize is how much is lost when a snowbird leaves. It's not one less tourist. It's months of spending eliminated, thousands of dollars not spent on restaurants, retail establishments, medical facilities, or leasing companies. And with the passage of time in 2025, the impact is being felt. Seasonal rentals that were once booked a year in advance now sit empty. Real estate agents report sharp declines in Canadian interest. The numbers don't lie. Bookings are down, interest has gone quiet, and Florida's once thriving winter economy is beginning to feel a very real chill. One of the first warning signs was from housing statistics. Canadian buyers for U.S. homes declined over 25% from last year, the largest decrease among all overseas purchasers. And at the heart of it all, Florida. For decades, Florida was the Canadian dream: beach life, sun-kissed winters, and homes that once seemed like a steal. It wasn't just a vacation, it was a way of life. But now, real estate agents across the state are witnessing an historic turnaround. Interest is drying up, and for some, it's gone entirely. One veteran agent, who usually has several Canadian clients every winter, reported that, for the first time in more than 10 years, not one of them has called her this year. More informative still, a subdued influx of foreign sellers. Houses previously owned by non-residents are now appearing on the market in growing quantities. Rather than investing in the Florida lifestyle, many are picking up and leaving. Why? Yes, higher insurance fees and rising property taxes are a factor. But for others, the underlying issue isn't so much dollars, it's emotion. There's a growing question among Canadians. Is America still a place we want to invest in or even visit? This goes well beyond real estate. It's an economic shot across the bow. When interest abroad slows down, the ripple effect touches everything, from building projects to renovation services, contracts, tourist spending, and more. Florida spent decades building a billion-dollar winter economy based on stable, predictable Canadian demand. Now, in 2025, the foundation is cracking, and the real estate community is warning of the dangers. And if property sales are the long-term gauge of pain, then vacation rentals are the short-term heartbeat. And currently, that heartbeat is declining rapidly. During previous years, searching for a last-minute seasonal rental in Florida was all but impossible. Houses were being grabbed a year in advance, particularly in beachside communities and retiree enclaves. But this winter, the scene appears different. Entire condo complexes and vacation homes that previously featured waiting lists sit empty. And local rental agents are starting to quietly hint at what nobody wants to actually say aloud. The Canadians aren't arriving. Agents say some of their repeat clients haven't been heard from. Others are hearing from repeat renters that they won't be back, at least not this year, and maybe never again. And that silence, that's expensive. These aren't empty guest bedrooms. These are complete homes, villas, and condos that previously brought thousands of dollars a month to community owners, many of whom need that seasonal cash to live. And that's just the impact that stops at the door. No renters means no need for cleaning crews, property managers, landscapers, or repairmen. Those wages vanish. And it goes deeper still, because snowbirds don't just rent homes. They invest a lot of dollars in groceries, restaurants, day trips, local attractions, spa treatments, boat tours. So when these tourists vanish, it isn't just the rental market that takes a hit. It's the entire local economy that loses its momentum. What's most shocking, this didn't happen overnight. There wasn't a viral boycott, no strident protest, just a quiet, steady pulling back, like the tide gradually going out from the beach. A winter that had once threatened congested streets, full restaurants, and reserved rentals now feels curiously emptier. What used to be a guaranteed seasonal boom has turned into a cloud of uncertainty. And if Florida's rental market continues this downward slide, we're not just talking about a dip in tourism. We're witnessing the slow unraveling of a seasonal economy that once ran like clockwork. And at the heart of it all, the same Canadians who once powered that economy, now quietly choosing to stay home. At first glance, it's simple to blame it all on economics. Higher insurance premiums, inflation, and lousy exchange rates. But once you finally start listening to what these veteran snowbirds are actually saying, a deeper and more compelling reason becomes apparent. This has nothing to do with money. It has to do with values. It has to do with principle. More and more Canadians aren't just standing still. They're boycotting America, and Florida in particular, as a silent but unmistakable protest. The political climate is mentioned by some. Others refer to cultural shifts they've witnessed in recent years. But for others, it's something even simpler. This place just doesn't feel like me anymore. We're not talking about deep pockets pulling out of markets. We're talking about regular people, seniors, families, seasoned tourists who spent decades building routines around their Floridian winters. A morning walk on the beach, coffee at the same local coffee shop, familiar faces in the neighborhood. But once that emotional connection is broken, the spending stops. And it can't be fixed with a tax break or travel ad. It is an emotional, not a financial change. And that's the very reason it's so hard to reverse. Some of the previous snowbirds are wintering elsewhere these days, in Spain or Portugal, or finding hidden Canadian treasures. Others vow never to invest in a country whose values they don't believe are being held in regard. It's not a loss of funds only, it's a loss of connections. Florida lost not only customers, but advocates, neighbors, community members, welcoming faces that formerly came back year after year with affection and dedication. And now, in 2025, that emotional break is reshaping Florida's relationship with one of its most consistent and polite seasonal populations. It is easy to think that one snowbird skipping out for a season only devastates one condo dweller or one local restaurant owner. But the ripple effect is much broader. affecting all aspects of the local economy in ways most individuals can only imagine. Let's break it down. One Canadian family on vacation in Florida for the winter might spend as much as $40,000 in a few months alone on groceries, eating out, rental vehicles, medical services, house maintenance, tours, even tips to locals. Multiply that by thousands of families. We're not talking about quick beach week tourists. Snowbirds stay for months. They're dependable. They become part of the fabric of their communities. They don't just visit. They live there seasonally. They support local shops. They keep restaurants busy. Many even volunteer, attend community events, and form bonds with neighbors. And now, with fewer Canadians returning, small business owners are feeling the sting. Restaurants that once thrived during the winter season are experiencing empty tables. Grocery stores are placing smaller orders. Tourist areas that had relied upon steady off-season traffic are seeing fewer visitors. The economic model that once counted on Canadian snowbirds is no longer in operation, and the long-term effects are just beginning to kick in. Even Florida's marinas and golf courses, resorts that tend to boom in January and February, are experiencing fewer reservations, less crowded beaches, and shorter purses. And here's the twist. A few Americans are rejoicing over the death of snowbirds, thinking it will mean less congestion, more available reservations, and maybe even lower-priced real estate. But that's not how this works. Fewer winter visitors doesn't lead to lower prices. It leads to declining demand, reduced margins, and in most cases, companies having to reduce services or close down. Florida's seasonal economy wasn't built on weekenders or last-minute masses. It was built on dependability, on the continued presence of repeat snowbirds, many from Canada. Now, in 2025, the weaknesses in that foundation are beginning to show up, even in places no one had expected, and it's not limited to a Florida problem. In cities all across America, local governments that long welcomed droves of Canadian snowbirds each winter are seeing sharp declines, not just in the purchase of homes, but in something even more telling, web searches. Within a period of 1 year, Canadian web searches for housing in Houston dropped by 55%. In Philadelphia, it's 53% lower. Chicago has fallen by 47%. These aren't the traditional snowbird spots. They're big cities. But that's what's making the trend even more alarming. It's everywhere. From the Sunbelt beach towns to the Northeast's urban skylines, Canadians are turning off to the U.S. real estate market, not just stepping back, but losing interest entirely. And that change goes far beyond real estate. This is greater than dwellings. It is regarding a lack of curiosity, a lack of ambition, and a weakening cultural tie. Once Canadians don't fantasize regarding living, even part-time, in American cities, they don't visit there, don't invest there, don't plan their lives there. And that tomorrow, it's looking very dissimilar. Agents in Arizona, long arrival to Florida for snowbird attention, are listening to the same silence. Realtors who would handle 5 or 6 Canadian buyers in an average year are reporting 0 this year. And the sole calls they're getting from Canada are individuals looking to sell, not buy. That quiet exodus of Canadians has massive economic impacts, not just on the tourism industry, but on construction, hospitality, healthcare, transportation, and financial services. What was a reliable migration is now a declining trend, and cities along the Gulf Coast to the Great Lakes are all asking themselves the same question. What happened? The answer is clear. Canadians didn't skip a season. They've withdrawn entirely, emotionally, financially, and culturally. And the U.S., and especially in 2025, is only just beginning to feel the impact. Florida, indeed, remains sunny, but under the palm trees, its once booming seasonal economy is quickly chilling. And the absence of Canadian snowbirds? It's not a pause, it's a pivot. Not a short-term change, but a transformative one. If this was enlightening, do us a favor, like, subscribe, and share the video. And if you're a snowbird yourself formerly, we'd like to hear from you. Post your story in the comments section below. You just might find yourself in the next video.